We gotta read. Shalom. We about to read and get it going on. Shalom. What up, everybody? What's up? Welcome back. This is part 2, baby. Reading with Shalom. Reading with Shalom. We out here for part 2. What we gonna do? Slide through, read a few. Man, we up here, man, trying to see what it is, baby. What it is in the early hours. Since I'm waking up, it's time to get this book devoured. man, what it is, what it ain't, what you can, what you can't. We out here trying to see what it be, man. From Miss GWENDOLYN MIDLO Hall, this is part 2 of the Africans in the Colonial Louisiana, baby. We out here. We out here, man. We out here. Like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your people, man, Shalom out here reading shit, doing shit, learning shit, man. We building shit. We being better. We being better than we was. Better than we was. Oh, yes, indeed. Gotta open up a book so your boy can read. Maybe for a few, we'll see what it do. Shalom, everybody that stop and come through. Give your boy a like. Comment on that. Man, we stopped off in chapter 1 last night. Last night we stopped off in chapter 1, man. I almost didn't get up and read, man. I was up, I woke up, and I was like, man, let me go read, man. Let me go read. Let me do my job. And read. Even though it's kind of hard sometimes to do. I'm going to keep pushing through. I can read. I don't feel like reading. I don't. But, you know, it's what you do when you don't feel like doing it. That's the issue, man. That's what shows your growth. That's what helps you persevere and push through. And since I have breath to breathe and I have all I need to succeed so I can get my ass up and read, baby, I'm going to keep pushing. Because I need to finish this book, man. I'm ready to get to the Black Indians. The Black Indians. As we push through Miss GWENDOLYN's book. Miss GWENDOLYN's book. Somebody took this shit. I'm pretty sure somebody took a class on this, and this was their book for the class. It might be all humbug. It might be tomfoolery, but we're going to go through and see what it be. I am that I am. How about that? But before we get going, man, before we keep pushing through the Africans in the Colonial Louisiana, man, we're going to go ahead and do a little something. I don't feel like doing a lot today, but I'll get my 100 jumping jacks in, man. I'm going to try to get them in. 100 jumping jacks, I guess. We're going to do something. Something needs to be done. I just don't want to. Something got to be done in the routine. I know I'm not going to do the 350 that I've been doing. My body's still on rehab. My body's still recouping. My body's still recouping, man. My body's still hurt. But my mind worked fine, so we're going to go ahead and read and see what it be. Israelites, stand up. Mount you, warrior. Man, let's get these 100 jumping jacks out the way, man. We'll get 100. We'll definitely do that. Let's do that for sure. Let's do the 100 jumping jacks. We'll see how I feel after that, man. Maybe we'll do some mountain climbers. Either way, something need to be done. It's part of the routine. Build, work your body, work your mind, and work your body again. That's what how we gonna start it. That's the routine we trying to build. That's the habit we trying to build, and we've been doing a good job so far. I ask if you get off your ass and do something. Just get off your ass and do something, man. Do something. Something is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. You won't see no improvement if you ain't doing shit. You won't see any improvement. If you want to see improvement, you got to get up and you got to do something. No matter what it is, whether it be reading, exercising, building something, working on something. If you want to see improvement, you have to get to moving. You have to do something. You have to have some motion going towards what you're trying to do. And a little bit is better than nothing. A little bit is better than nothing. And sometimes that's all it takes to light that spark. Just a little bit. A little bit. A little bit. So let's do the 100 jumping jacks. Let's get that out of the way. Shit, man. Let's get the 100 jumping jacks out the way. Let me tie my shit up, man. So my pants don't be falling down around my damn ankles. Tie my stuff up. Because I hate when I got to stop to tie my shit up. Let's get fringed up on deck. Fringed up and border blue, baby. 100. Let's just do 100. We'll do 100 jumping jacks. We'll start with that, man. See how it keep going. 100 jumping jacks. You might do some push-ups. But 100 jumping jacks for sure. I need that in my life. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 7, 68, 69, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. Woo-hoo. Let's get like that. 77, 78, 79, 80, 1, 82, 3, 84, 5, 86, 7, 88, 9, 90, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 100. I think I'm gonna stop there, man. 100 of them bad boys. We do that. We'll rock with that. 100 push-ups. I'll take that for right now. Are you one of them Israelites? I am that I am. I don't feel like letting my hair hang down today. All right. We're just going to read, man. We're going to get to reading. I got to do something, man. I can't do nothing, man. I got to do something. Well, we read a couple of pages. We read through the preface last night. We got through the preface. All praises, man. At least I could do that 100. At least I got that 100 out the way. All right. 100 push, 100 jumping jacks out the way. Something. It was something. I didn't feel like doing nothing, honestly. But we read through the preface last night. Read through the preface. We started on the first chapter last night. I think I read decent. I read decently last night. We didn't have to look up too many words. But, you know, if there are some words we got to look up, we will look them up so we can better understand what's trying to be said by Miss Gwendolyn Midlo Hall, what she's trying to purvey to us. Maybe it help us, you know, find the treasures better once we look up the words. If there's anything I have trouble pronouncing, or I think I'm having trouble pronouncing, or need to know, we'll stop and look it up. We still got about 15 pages to go till we get to chapter 2. Maybe 20 more pages till we get to chapter 2. So we're not gonna get to chapter 2 tonight. We won't get to chapter 2 today. We'll probably get to it tomorrow, but we'll keep pushing. We'll keep rolling through and see how far we can get and try to maneuver and see what we can learn. Chapter 1 is called The Chaos of French Rule. And there was a lot of stuff going on. There's been a lot of dates they were telling so far about the different people that they had coming to Louisiana. Louisiana was almost like a prison state or a prison place where they were deporting a lot of people from France. They was deporting the drunkards, the murderers, and the prostitutes and things of that nature from France. A lot of women they was trying to deport. It was some violent stuff going on with the people who they was trying to deport. The police was going around snatching people up for deportation. They even had kind of like bounties going on people that had to deport, so they'll get, you know, something off of the people that they captured. Soldiers was going there, but Louisiana was very inhospitable for the people who they weren't used to that lifestyle, and the ones that were more hospitable were the Canadian trappers or the fur traders who helped as they pushed through the Mississippi River Valley and got their butts down here to Louisiana and Mississippi. They was the ones who dealt with the Indians, and the Indians really did a lot of fighting and skirmishes and helped push back the people. And the time that the people was down there, they was just dying off. The people was dying off. Children was dying, women was dying, men was dying from fighting, from lack of food. I didn't really say much about disease or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure disease, stuff that they just wasn't used to coming from France. It was a different type of environment. And but it was a mixture. It was a mixture of people. But being that it was a prison environment, that says a lot. That said a lot in itself. So let's pick back up. This is part 2. Part 2 of Reading with Shallow, Africans in Colonial Louisiana by Gwendolyn Midlo Hall. The chaos in French rule. The chaos of French rule. There was no systematic census taken by the French authorities in Louisiana after 1731. And in 1746, during King George's War between England and France, 1744 to 1748, the white population was estimated to be 3,200 and the black population 4,730. Now, Louisiana was thoroughly Africanized during the early years of colonization, and slaves were still a majority of the French settlements when France abandoned the colony to Spain in 1763. Lower Louisiana was not the place to come to establish production of commodities for export, and French Louisiana was very poor, unlike French Canada, where the fishing industry and the beaver trade with the Indians provided a firm economic basis for colonization, even through the French population, though the French population remained small. Louisiana was never a colony of economic exploitation. The furs of Lower Louisiana were far inferior to those of Canada, and they often rotted in the humid climate while awaiting a ship. French Louisiana cannot be accurately described as a plantation society. It never really developed a viable self-sustaining economy, And unlike the French West Indies, the Tidewater and the Tidewater region of the British continental colonies, Louisiana was not a prosperous slave plantation society producing valuable export staples. It was viewed as the least valuable of France's colonies, and one whose economic development might threaten not only France, but also the more important French West Indies, which around that time they was having issues. They was having issues with Haiti and Guadeloupe and Saint Martinique, as we read in the other books, or coming into a little later. The ruling elite of French Louisiana was a military bureaucrat clique whose wealth derived mainly from commerce and often smuggling and sometimes piracy, and access to trade goods and commercial ties with France was crucial. The Indian fur trade, control of desperately needed supplies, and the smuggling of French goods into Spanish Pensacola, Mexico, and Cuba, as well as some piracy, enriched the elite, and naval stores and tobacco were exported. But the quality was often poor, and the cost of production, shipping, and transport was prohibitive unless heavily subsidized. Now, reliance upon the Indian nations to furnish corn quickly wore thin as Indians were encouraged to hunt for pelts and engaged in warfare for the benefit of France. And French officials often had to feed hungry Indian nations. The first two slave ships from Africa, which arrived in 1719, brought several barrels of rice seeds and African slaves who knew how to produce the crop. Now, rice became the only reliable food crop for local consumption in Louisiana, and it still is. Louisiana rice is still a big thing down here, along with other seafood. But the rice and sugarcane is still big down here. Now, little was exported. Cotton was grown, but the problem of separating the seed from the lint was never adequately solved, and the major agriculture export crops, tobacco and indigo, were normally not comparative in the world market, and they were short-lived indigo booms. When crops failed in Central America and the French West Indies, floods and insects mercifully spared the Louisiana crop, and a lull in warfare and piracy allowed for shipping. Now, there was little direct trade with France, and trade with the French West Indies was limited during the 1730s and 1740s. And during a brief peace between, England and France during the early 1750s, small ships brought goods with a high markup from France via the islands, taking a return cargo of Cyprus. But these ships were too small to carry much lumber, and trade and monetary restrictions intended to protect the French West Indies from competition from Louisiana strangled this budding economic development. Additionally, there was a chronic labor shortage. Only one African slave trade ship arrived in Louisiana after 1731, and the export of slaves from the French islands was prohibited, except for the West Indian planters. Except for a few, the West Indian planters were trying to get rid of sharply limiting the possibilities of the economic growth. And they were trying to keep the insurrections from coming over from Haiti, from the West Indies as well. The sugar industry also could not develop because of lack of labor and fear of competition with the French islands. In truth, Louisiana had little to offer. The colony was poor, unhealthy, dangerous, and uninviting, and communication with the outside world was difficult. Far removed from normal trade routes, its few harbors, as well as the several mouths of the Mississippi River, were shallow and often blocked by ever-shifting sandbars, and ships often broke up on these sandbars in and near the river. Now, the voyage to Louisiana through pirate-infested waters was long and dangerous, and the damp climate was unhealthy. The long summers very hot, the winters sometimes quite cold, and mortality rate was high. Hurricanes and floods regularly decimated settlements and fortifications, and land had to be ditched and drained. And flooding of the Mississippi River had to be controlled with dikes called levees. Now, levees in English, because the inferior skins and hides brought from the Indians often rotted while awaiting the ships. Troop ships arriving from France often found no return cargo, and it was also difficult to get food for the return voyage in a land often gripped by famine. The early colony had little to offer, except for a few deerskin, buffalo hides, and some poor quality pitch. Now, two streams of previous French colonization in North America merged in Louisiana. One component comprised pirates from the Caribbean, who were experienced in enriching themselves through raiding settlements, seizing ships, goods, and slaves, selling the booty, and holding wealthy citizens for ransom. The pirates moved towards legitimization through smuggling and commerce. And the other component of the Canadian coureurs de bois, experienced in living and trading with the Indian peoples. Now, both components were essential to the survival of early Louisiana, and neither was interested in producing wealth. These two components merged in the careers of the Canadian founders, the brothers Pierre Lamont and Sieur d'Iberville. Jean-Baptiste Lamont, Sieur de Benneville, and less famous Château de Sergeny. Iberville and Benneville led the first successful colonization expedition. Benneville dominated the politics of the colony for decades, while the first colonists of Louisiana were racked by hunger and disease when the outbreak of war with the Spanish succession in May 1702 cut them off from the supplies by sea. The Lamont brothers were busy lining their pockets at the expense of the colonists, of France, and of any victims they might encounter. And through profiteering was the many-faceted and was carried out with a great ingenuity and determination. Now, profiteering and malfeasance began with the outfitting of the naval squadron that Iberville commanded during the War of the Spanish Succession. Iberville took funds from the Navy to stock the ships and instead filled them with the merchandise for illicit sale for the benefit of himself, his officers, and some merchant associates. It's still a lot of that going on. A lot of illicit selling of merchandise. The ships ran out of supplies and had to stop to make purchases along their route at much higher prices than in France. Iberville simply added these charges to the naval bills and raising the total cost of the expedition. And he sold contraband, iron, and various merchandise in Havana and in St. Dominic, in St. Dominic. He carried out piratical raids at Nevis, holding prominent citizens for ransom. He seized booty, including 1,309 slaves who were sold for Iberville's profit by a merchant in St. Dominic. And other booty seized during the campaign was sold at St. Dominic and Martinique for the benefit of the officers, mainly of Bienville. Serigny's malfeasance was most serious for the starving infant colony, and he left France in command of the Coventry with the instructions to sail to the Mississippi to resupply the colony. And after Nevis's expedition, he took his ships to Veracruz instead, where he sold merchandise, slaves, and the booty from the Portuguese ships that had been taken to St. Christopher, returning with a cargo of tobacco. And he charged the Navy for the unauthorized trip to Veracruz and made 60,000 piastres in profit. What is a piastres? Piastres. Let me see if the Terminator got it. A piastres.
You know what?
Piastres. not Beatrice. Beatrice. You sucker. Piastries. Piastros. Piastros. This detour compromised the resupplying of the colony partially because Serigny substituted a ship of lesser tonnage, L'Angel, for the trip to Louisiana. Oh, I hate it. Bullshit. Give it a word, bitch.
Piasters.
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 Piasters. Now, what does it mean? Piasters, currency. Piasters is another name for the kuruş of a Turkish lira. The piasters is still used in Mauritius when bidding in auction sales, similarly to the way that the guineas are used in the British racehorse auctions. Piasters. How much is 50 piasters worth in US dollars? Egyptian piasters. One piaster equals 100 cents, and 1 cent equals 2 and 6 sequins. I know I mispronounced that, depending on the dynasty and the reign era. And according to the ratio of French Indochinese piastre coin is worth from 200 to 600 traditional Vietnamese cash coins. Piastre. L'Angel could not carry all the supplies sent, and some had to be left in Havana, and losses were also incurred through negligence and reloading. Now, of the supplies that actually arrived, some of the munitions were stolen or lost in transportation from Massacre Island to Fort Lewis. Now, Benneville was accused of employing His Majesty's crews and boats to transport his own goods and those of the clique to Veracruz and to France, and of treating the king's merchandise in the warehouse as his own, appropriating whatever he pleased, and then selling it at an exorbitant price to the desperate settlers and making an enormous profit. And when he did not appropriate the king's goods outright, Benneville brought them at a markup of 25% and resold them at the profit of 400%. Boy, that boy makes some money. Now, Father Raphael complained that the military grabbed up the few products brought to the market and that soldiers took items sent to individual settlers and forced them to buy them back at 3 and 4 times the original price. Could the colony have survived without the Lamont brothers, swashbuckling talents and accumulating illegitimate wealth for themselves and their clique in the absence of more legitimate sources of wealth? The answer is probably no. And it seems that they knew how to make the colonization of Louisiana worthwhile, and at least for themselves and their followers. Now, Crozat's attempt to establish Louisiana as a proprietary colony based upon the development of agriculture and the mining was a costly failure. The Laws Company of the West gave Louisiana back to the French crown in 1731 after investing 20 million livres in the colony at a substantial loss. And Benneville was brought back to Louisiana in triumph to rule as governor And by mid-century, Louisiana was costing France 800,000 livres a year. Now, it has been claimed that France had a particular gift for understanding and conciliating the Indians, and that, unlike the English colonists on the North American continent, the French were more interested in the fur trade and military alliance with the Indians than in taking over their land. The French therefore aimed to preserve the Indians while the English aimed to displace them. The English Atlantic colonies were comparatively thickly populated by whites and had developed a productive, self-sustaining economy, and could therefore afford an attitude of racial exclusiveness toward Indian nations. But religious and cultural differences between the French and Canadian colonists of Louisiana and the English colonists were significant factors in how each group treated the Indians. Although the missionary zeal that each group characterized Canadian colonization had wanted by the time Louisiana was founded, and missionaries played a vital role in the exploration and early French colonization of the Mississippi Valley. Now, contributing to a degree of racial openness and fluidity. The greatest strength of the Canadian and French settlers of Louisiana was their openness to the peoples of other races and cultures. And surely it was the main reason for their survival in this dangerous and inhospitable land. Now, during the first year of Louisiana's colonization, Bonneville forged an alliance with the Choctaw to help protect them against the slave raiders and from the South Carolinas and their Indian allies. But France had comparatively little to offer besides protection from these groups and from the expansion of the English colonies into the Mississippi Valley. And if the ability to develop rapport with the Indians was a talent of the French and the Canadian settlers of Louisiana, it was also a precondition for their survival. The British colonies in the Atlantic coast of North America, France's great rival, kept up constant pressure on France's sparsely settled colony through their Chickasaw allies and often through the successful infiltration of France's great ally, the Choctaw. Now, the supply of French trade groups was unreliable, and they were not competitive with British groups in either price or quality. And in spite of their severe disadvantages, France usually managed to retain the loyalty of the most important Indian nations of Lower Louisiana. The Indians of Louisiana taught the white colonists a great deal about flora and fauna, the topography of the land, and the building of boats and the navigation of the rich network of treacherous waterways that allowed communications among French settlements, hunting, fishing, warfare, agriculture, techniques of building houses, clothing and dress, preparation and preservation of food, and herbal medicine. The Delta country to the south and west of New Orleans had been occupied by the Chitimaca, whose population was estimated to be 4,000 during the early period of French civilization, and they relied mainly upon shellfish and seafood for their diet. Their religion and social organization were complex. An elite class had emerged, and their villages were compassed of sturdy wooden houses, and their crafts were sophisticated. The economy of the swamp and the tidal wetlands in and around New Orleans was built up from Chitimaca beginnings, and techniques of cultivating corn, squash, potatoes, tobacco, and other indigenous crops were surely learned from the Indians. Chitimaca. I wonder how close were they with the Attackapaw's. Chitimaca Indians. Chitimacas were wild nomadic people who lived north of the Valley of Mexico. They had no fixed dwelling places, lived by hunting, and wore little clothes. The Chitimaca. Were the Chitimacha and the Attakapaw Indians the same? Were the Chitimacha Indians and the Attakapaw Indians the same? Attakapaw. Attakapaw. No, the Chitimacha and Attakapaw Indians were not the same, although they were neighboring peoples who lived in the same general area, southwest Louisiana and southeast Texas, and sometimes interacted. The Attakapaw were the indigenous people of the southeastern woodlands who spoke the Attakapaw language and historically lived along the Gulf of Mexico, and it was in what is now Texas and Louisiana. The Chitimacha were another indigenous group in the same region, also part of the southeastern woodlands and sometimes associated with the Attakapaw. While they were neighbors and likely interacted, the Chitimacha and Attakapaw were distinct groups with their own languages and cultures. Appaloosa is in there. The Appaloosa were another indigenous people of the southeastern woodlands in Louisiana, who lived near present-day Opelousas, which is where I'm at. Opelousas, Louisiana, west of the lower Mississippi River at various times allied with the neighboring Attakapaw and Chitimacha people, which is something I wanted to know. So the Appaloosa was different from all of them. They just intermingled with each other. Chitimacha, the Attakapaw, and the Appaloosa Indians. I wonder which is in my line. I wonder. The Delta country to the south and western New Orleans had been occupied by the Chitimacha, whose population was estimated to be 4,000 during the early period of the French colonization, and they relied mainly upon shellfish and seafood for their diet. Their religion and social organization were complex. An elite class had emerged, and their villages were composed of sturdy wooden houses, and their crafts were sophisticated. The economy of the swamp and of the tidal wetlands in and around New Orleans was built up from Chitimacha beginnings, and techniques of cultivating corn, squash, potatoes, tobacco, and other indigenous crops were surely learned from the Indians. Many of the early French settlements of lower Louisiana began in the Indian villages, and during the frequent famines that gripped the colony, French soldiers were sent to live with Indian tribes so they would not starve to death. And French and Canadian settlers were acculturated by the Indians, and soldiers and sailors were sent to live in Indian villages to learn their languages and act as interpreters. Now, soldiers serving at the frontier posts became well acquainted with Indian nations and often sought and received their protection. The early settlers consolidated their relationships with Indian nations by marrying Indian women. The Illinois Indians, for example, reiterated their loyalty to the French by referring to the alliances which many of that nation had contracted with them in espousing their daughters. A Missouri Indian woman named Françoise married Dubois, a French military officer stationed in Missouri, and he died and left several children by her. And thereafter, she married another Frenchman living in Illinois and had several children by him, and predeceased him. predecessed. Not predator, bitch. Not predecessor. Predeceased. Predeceased.
Predeceased.
I had it right the first time. Predeceased, to die before someone else, or to die before the occurrence of an event. Predeceased. And predeceased him. Her son-in-law, by a daughter from her first marriage, sued her widower for property belonging to the community of the first marriage. Intermarriage between French Canadians and Indians was common in Lower Louisiana as well. Ordinator Solomon complained that with the lack of French wives, the missionaries had ignored the government's prohibition against interracial marriage. And Charles Hegron executed a will before Father Dagobert Capuchin, priest of New Orleans, leaving half his estate to his Indian wife, Francoise, and the other half to their two legitimate children. Now, a tutor was appointed to administer the estate on the grounds of that, as an Indian, the widow was incompetent, and Bernard Wigg had a wife named Fuanika, And there was, of course, evidence of more informal relationships as well. For example, the will of the French settlers at Natchitoches provided for a cash bequest and freedom for the Osage woman slave, and the French settler Jean Hewitt freed Marie, a Fox Indian woman, and her daughter Jeannette under this will, and Francois Nyon, another French settler, willed 3,000 livres to Marie, provided her daughter and her daughter's posterity survived. Now, the Indian frontier was never remote during the period of the French rule in Louisiana, and it was ever present, dangerous, and complex. And Indian neighbors were essential to the colony. The French authorities relied heavily upon the warriors of their Indian allies, but the French control was always weak, and white settlers, traders, soldiers, and missionaries were killed by Indians, and sometimes after slow torture. And when they were not mercifully tomahawked and scalped at once, they were sometimes tied to wooden frames and slowly burned to death. And if France's alliances with Indian nations held up at all, it was because the Indians feared the English colonists more than they did the French. But the French-Indian alliances were always brittle, and the French settlers were in a constant state of insecurity in a world where they were too few to do without the Indians and too weak to control them. The French were exposed to attacks by Indians considered their allies, as well as by those Indians who were openly hostile. And British traders were active in undermining Choctaw loyalty to the French, especially during the many periods of open British-French warfare. The revolt against the French carried out by the Natchez Nation and their allies in 1729 nearly destroyed the colonies, and the French wars against the Chickasaw during the 1730s and the early 1740s were long, costly, and indecisive. Maybe that's why, down here in Louisiana, I'm reading a solid track. I'm reading Africans in Colonial Louisiana by GWENDOLYN MIDLO Hall. And maybe that's why, even now to this day, within the different parts of Louisiana, it's definitely spoken, things are spoken differently, and people from Louisiana can tell what parts of Louisiana you're from by the way you speak certain things. Even though people from outside of Louisiana think everybody from New Orleans, the accent from New Orleans is different from the accent from where I'm from Opelousas, Louisiana, or the St. Landry Parish area, compared to people from up north in Natchitoches, Monroe, or Alexandria. It's definitely it's a different tonality, it's a different pronunciation of things, and everybody claims that they're not the same. We're not the same, even though we're from the same state. We're not the same. Similar to the different Indian nations. These campaigns nearly emptied the colony of permanent settlers and decimated the African slave population. And during the Chickasaw Wars, the Choctaw were divided into the Western Choctaw, a pro-British faction led by Red Shoe, and the Eastern Choctaw, who were helped by and who remained loyal to the French. Let's see. All right, so it shows a map here. Let's go ahead. And you might not be able to see it as good, but New Orleans, let me make sure. Yeah, New Orleans is here, Baton Rouge here on the Mississippi, and I'm closer to here on the Atchafalaya, where we stay. This is where I fish. We fish a lot near the Atchafalaya, or in the Atchafalaya River Basin is where we do a lot of the fishing. So if you see, if you go back to maybe some of my shorts and you see fish that I've caught, the fish that I've caught come from the Atchafalaya River Basin, which according to this map, they really haven't ventured off into, because Opelousas isn't there yet in this. You see the German coast, Bay of St. Louis, Biloxi, Mobile, Pensacola, Point Capee, which is down the road, Baton Rouge. And you're gonna come to Point Capee before you get to Baton Rouge, from where I'm from. Let's keep going a little bit. We're almost done. We're gonna get ready and find a stopping point. I'll try to read to the next page. Let me mark it. I'll try to read to the next page and stop there. I'll mark it that paragraph. Now, Red Shoe introduced British traders and large amounts of British trade goods into the villages of the Western Choctaw. And during King George's War, attacks against French traders and settlers by the Western Choctaw increased. And Governor Vaudreuil considered the Eastern Choctaw no match for them. And although the French managed to have Red Shoe tomahawked by his own nation on June 8, 1747, the Western Choctaw continued to assault French soldiers and settlers near New Orleans and Mobile and at Natchez. And in 1748, the Western Choctaw raided a farm on the Côte d'Alamange, the German coast, only a few miles north of New Orleans, and they killed the husband, scalped the wife, and took the daughter and the black slave prisoner. And Germans had been brought to Louisiana by John Law, and they suffered high mortality rates while awaiting ships in France and on the barren, sandy beaches along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, and thereafter in their settlements along the Arkansas River. Now, the remnants of these Germans became a significant and stable element of the white population near New Orleans. And by 1724, 60 households of Germans were established at the Côte d'Alamange. And they grew cattle and garden crops that were essential to the food supply of the capital. And soldiers were sent to pursue the Choctaw who had raided the German farm, and the soldiers were fired upon by a small band of Choctaw and some runaway black and Indian slaves who had taken refuge among them. And one Swiss soldier who killed, and 2 others were wounded, and the troops withdrew, creating further panic on the German coast and in New Orleans. Now, Governor Vaudreuil blamed the colonists' lack of vigilance for this raid, and he complained that instead of organizing to defend themselves against an enemy from whom, according to Vaudreuil, they had nothing to fear if they remained on their guard, the colonists had abandoned their farms, and almost all of them had run off to New Orleans. And after the governor threatened them and promised a fairly large military detachment for their protection, the Germans returned home. But as soon as the detachment left, they moved to the west bank of the Mississippi River and abandoned their houses, leaving their cultivated and seeded lands to their cattle. And Vaudreuil commented, "This is the effect produced in this colony by the least incursions made by the Indians, and this near New Orleans, where one has least to fear than anywhere else." But the Germans did not remain in their settlements, and 5 years after the Choctaw attack, Governor Cleric reported, "The settlers are withdrawing from it, and to the extent that they are diminishing every day." And it was, however, a definite resource for the comforts of life of the capital and of the voyagers, and at the same time, an addition to the land and cultivation and to the colonists for the state. We're gonna stop there. We're gonna stop there. The Germans and came in on the thing, on the stealing of the land. The Choctaw was out there scalping people. Take that, and scalping people and tomahawking people. Get back. Shit. Yeah, we almost made it to chapter 2. We made it to we made it to page 18. Chapter 2 starts on page 28. So we got 10 pages left. 10 pages left to read till we get to chapter 2, which we'll probably read tomorrow. We'll probably read that tomorrow. Lost by Life. I wonder if it's going to go into, it makes me wonder if it's going to go into the Appaloosa Indians as well as the Attakapaw, if it's going to mention them. I wonder if it's going to mention them. I wonder. But this has been part 2 of Africans in Colonial Louisiana by GWENDOLYN MIDLO Hall. See pages that has been laid before us that we just rolled through the night. We was rolling through that thing. Roll about some of the history of Louisiana. So say some of the history of Louisiana. I would really like to read, that's where, when reading about the Indians, which I don't know if they have much history regarding them. Yes, we're going to get into the book, The Black Indians, but, I would love to read some of the history from the Indians' point of view, or the so-called Indians' point of view, the different tribes, especially the Appaloosa tribe. I would love to read some of the history from the Appaloosa tribe concerning the settlers that tried to come in and take over them, because the history coming from the French side or the Spanish side or even the German or British side, English side is going to be, leaned towards them. Of course, they're going to say these people did them dirty, or the Indians, they was fighting and the Indians kept coming in. Yeah, bitch, because you was trying to steal their shit. You was trying to take over their land and you was fucking up their stuff. So, of course, it would be, some skirmishes and they was going to try to uproot every settlement that you tried to put there. But you wasn't supposed to be there. You are not welcome here type shit. Get your ass out. So of course it's gonna be that. So I would love to see. Man, let me see this book, man. I got this other book up here. It's called the 500 Nations. Let's see if the Appaloosa Indians is in here, man. And even the Attackapah. Let's look in here right quick, man. Oh, Appaloosa. Nope, Appaloosa not in here. Let's see the Attackapah. Let's see if the Attackapah is in here. The Attackapah not in here either. I wonder why they don't mention them. You know, a lot of this stuff be propaganda, honestly. You know, it's good to learn and good to read and good to have, you know, a lot of this where did I get this book from? I think I'm no, this came from the thrift books. Attackapah. Yeah, you can skip over them, man. A lot of this stuff is good to have and all, but yeah, a lot of this shit is propaganda. Even though they're depicted in color, look at the color of their skin. Copper color people. Even though they're depicted as such, you know, there's still a lot of groups that are missing. And when you're coming from a pink people frame of mind, a lot of this stuff can be slanted in a certain type of way. A lot of this stuff can be slanted in a certain type of way. But yeah, I was trying to see, hoping that they had something about the Choctaw. But that's why books like the Black Indians come into handy, or come into play, which we'll get into next. That'll be the next one that I read for sure. That's on the list. That's on the list next. I've heard about it many a times. Yeah, you're right. Incomplete at best. Incomplete. Yeah, it's always one-sided. It's normally one-sided. Which Miss Gwendolyn mentions in the preface. She mentioned it in the preface about how no, she didn't. She didn't mention it in the preface. It was someone I saw. It was someone I watched. It was an Indian woman. She was like, why don't you hear the stories about how the Indians thought when they first saw the colonists coming, or when they first saw the so-called white man coming, and how they smelled and how they thought the language was, how they talked, you know, the diseases that they brought with them, you know, how these people didn't bathe because they was dirty. Here's some dirty people, you know. How they were like almost like children. You know, the Indians had to treat these people like children and teach them, you know, no, do this, don't do that. Almost like when you looking at what's that movie, man? The movie Avatar, with the blue folks, with the blue people. And when that guy who couldn't walk first came into the place, and the girl Avatar was watching him and teaching him, and she was like, "You like a baby, you know, you out here making all this noise." You making all this noise like a baby, you know, things gonna come after you. That's pretty much how them people was, you know. So they had to be taught just like children. And I'm pretty sure they were looked at like children. And then a lot of them didn't survive. Just like they say the mortality rate of the children was really high. The mortality rate of them was really high as well. They was dying off. It's not that the land was inhospitable. It's the land was inhospitable for them, you know, because they wasn't supposed to be here, you know. So of course it's gonna be inhospitable for you, bitch. You foreign. You are foreign. You are a parasite, like a parasite. You are a foreign parasite to the land. Of course it's inhospitable for you. There are no uh big buildings. We have, you know, they had their own way of living. And a lot of the, you know, when some of the stuff that I've looked up in some of these different Indians, they were nomads. It's not like they stayed in the same place. They might have came back to that place, but just like they talked about how the Mississippi would flood. The Indians most likely went with they lived in a region for a little while, and then when the Mississippi River Valley started to flood, they moved out of that region. They knew how to take advantage of the land and probably live their life and their culture was surrounding all that. But the English and the French and the Spanish had to come in and levy that shit up. They was like, nope, fuck that water. Put something there. We gotta put a wall right there. We gotta build something right there because we can't keep having this water coming in and doing this natural thing. You know, keeping the land. These is that water coming in like it came in would be stuff that helped the land to become to continue to be fertile in the areas where it was fertile. You probably needed that to be watered. You know, it needed to water a certain way. It came in and brought certain sediments from other places because it's at the bottom. You know, Mississippi is at the bottom. So the sediment that was coming down the Mississippi River would be pushed into these other places to help either build it up, help for the wildlife that was down there. Yep. Uh, there's a lot of things. Let's see. There were over 2,000-year-old mounds at Crystal River here in Florida with copper tools, but the nearest copper is Michigan. And there was an extensive trade and movement. Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of trade between the Indian, so-called Indian, or the indigenous, I would say, the indigenous societies and people who was in this land before uh, all these barbarians start coming over here and uh, barbarians and Vikings trying to take the land by force, by pillaging and raiding. And they complained. They would complain about other people raiding when they came down here and raided. You know, it's crazy to me. Don't do to us what we do to you. How dare you do to us what we do to you? Y'all are wrong for doing that to us, even though we did it to you first. Man, it just don't make it's stupid. It don't make sense. You know, where's the logic? Where's the logic in that? You know, all the mounds that they have here, I think on LSU down here is built upon, I think, a mound. And a lot of the mound builders down here, you'll find that in history and historical things. Louisiana definitely, like the whole, I would say the Mississippi, the lower Mississippi area, Louisiana, Mississippi, even Alabama too as well. Even like you say, down all the way down to Florida, a lot of mound builders, a lot of mound builders, and the mound building most likely was in a lot of cases something that they learned based upon, you know, work the flooding. A lot of people in my mind when I think of the mounds. Um, I think of multiple things, like the gardening for one to help cultivate the land and to keep your stuff safe from the flooding in certain areas, as well as how people down here in Louisiana put their houses up high or up higher. Some houses be high on stilts, and some houses it looks like it could be, you know, on a mound just to prepare themselves for the influx of water that was going to come in and during the different times of the year, the rainy season, the hurricane seasons, so on and so forth. Also, it would be help in hunting to be able to, just like when you a lot of people bow hunt, they shooting down from the trees, so it gives you a higher vantage point to shoot down at stuff that's lower from the height of the top of the mound. In some things I saw they lived inside the mounds. They built their home structures inside the mounds and would have things growing on the outside of the mound so they can help sustain them. Living side by side with the land. But yeah, a lot of that stuff has been um, demolished, built over, rolled it over. You know, due to the levees being built, water has been going in places where it wasn't before, so it destroyed a lot of historical things. Uh, the same way they say a lot of these man-made lakes are built upon, towns. Yeah, they're definitely trying to erase the history because that history tells a different story. That history does tell a different story. It will show a different story. The people that they may try to say is not civilized, it would show how civilized they really were. And a lot of these things that they did back then, even like the pyramids, can't be repeated today. So, but we'll keep reading, we'll keep pushing and seeing what we can unearth in Africans in colonial Louisiana, what treasures we can find, what things I like when as I've been reading, I like when a book has me kind of thinking off of other things. It gets my mind wondering. I like when a book does that. So far, it's just all the dates. It's sometimes trying to keep up with all the dates in these historical books, and then trying to match the dates up with certain things. You really need to take notes if you're going to do those type of things, which is like a school subject. You really need to take the notes, which I'm not taking notes. I'm just reading. I'll mark down certain words and certain things that I think is important, but it's not really taking notes. But the notes, these are things that you can and should, if you're really into that, you really have to dive deep into the different dates and the names so you can look up certain things. But I would love to see I would love to see historical records and writings from the Attakapaw, the Choctaw, the English, the Appaloosa Indians, those people. But a lot of that stuff would probably be how you say, I guess you would say blackballed, just the same way they don't want certain music being played or because they don't want certain information getting out there. It probably would be the same way with the books and the historical information. They don't want. Who wrote that? Oh hell no! Don't put that book out there. Hide that book deep in the back. You gotta. These are the things that they be having in the in the back of the library where nobody can get to. You gotta have special things to get to that part of the library. But oh man, I read all right. I stumbled over some words. I was stumbling over some words. I was reading kind of choppy at times, but we'll keep pushing, man. We'll keep pushing. We will keep pushing. The more you read, the more you practice, the better you'll get. Uh, um, and that's the objective: to get better, be better, learn more, be on the offensive of what I allow into my mind and what I'm inputting in there. And even though this might be a book that they have used in college or in some type of educational system, it's still something I chose. I chose to put it in. I chose to input these things or to even give my eyes the privilege or, you know, to be able to see what was in this, man. I want to delve into it. Like I said, I've been having this book for years. I've been having this book for years and never wanted to. I've thought it might have had some good information in it, but I never really had the interest to reading it until I read about Toussaint Louverture, and I seen that it might correlate with the insurrections that were happening in New Orleans because it mentioned some in the other book. So I wanted to see if it was going to have a correlation in this book to the other books. And I think the Black Indians are going to have a correlation to this book because it's talking about a lot of the usage of the Indian soldiers, the usage of the different allies they may have had, and pitting one Indian nation against another Indian nation. You know, man, that never trust your enemy. You know, never trust your enemy is what the scriptures say. Just like iron, they were rusted. You know, never trust your enemy. And even though they might not say it outright in the book, you can tell by some of the things that they are saying. You know, especially using one Indian group against another Indian group. Man, these people don't care. These people don't care about us. How Michael Jackson say, they don't really care about us. They don't care about nobody but themselves. You know, the prophets of themselves. It's just like once again, it's just like in Avatar. You know, they didn't care about tearing down the mother tree. They didn't care about tearing down what was a holy site. All they cared about is what they came for, the profit. How much, you know what I can make off of this? You know how much what we can do with these things that they don't use it for this? Yeah, man. Fuck them. Hey, the pirates and stuff was needed, you know. The pirates and stuff was needed. Insurrections were needed. And it's going to always be that when you come into somebody else's land and try to take it over. It's always going to be that. Oh, man. So let's go ahead. We worked our body. We worked our mind. Let's work our body one last time. We're going to give it another 100 jumping jacks right quick. And then we're going to close it out. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Tell your people, man, SHILO out here reading shit. We learning shit. We doing shit. We building shit. We growing shit, man. We trying to learn. We trying to know some shit. We trying to be better. That is the objective, to be better. And if not for yourself, then be better for those that come after you, like your children and the ones that are watching you, even though you might not know that they're watching you. You are being seen and you are teaching something. So let's give them a better example. Let's give them a better example. And as long as you have breath to breathe, then you have all you need to succeed. So for me, I'm going to get up and read. That's what I'm going to do. And I succeeded at reading for today. Succeed at small and work your way to succeeding at big, at large things. So let's do these 100 jumping jacks. I'm going to move along. I don't want to do them, no. Oh, I don't want to do them. I really don't. But, because my body still hurt, man. My body still hurt. But, let's go ahead and get these jumping jacks out the way, man, and we'll move along. I haven't even done reading Rising Scripts this morning, man. I was so tired. I didn't wake up till damn 10 o'clock. And then I went out there and got in that garden. But let's get 100 jumping jacks. Oh, man, hold up. 100. Man, I feel it all in my hips. You know, one thing I need to do that I haven't been doing is stretching for real, man. You know, don't be like me. Stretch yourself out. Stretch yourself out. That's something you can do if you don't do nothing else at home, man. Stretch yourself out. Don't get stiff. You know, stretch yourself out in many ways, man. Just help your body. Help your body. Keep your body. The health of your body is the wealth of you. So keep your body in good health. Keep your body, your mobility, your maneuverability. You know, your flexibility. You need to keep all that shit good, man. Keep all that shit good. Work on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 6, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 80, 81, 82, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 90, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 100. Whoo, whoo. Man. Woo, 100. Oh. 100. 100. Cool. We're going to call it a night, man. We're going to stop it right there for Verizon. Verizon scripts. We're going to stop it right there. Man. I think I started on another carving for my other son, which I need to pick back up on some of the other carvings I haven't been carving. Since I finished the Sonic one, I haven't been carving since I finished that one. But now I got to get started on the other one for my other son. This is the one he won't. I already didn't got it, for the most part, drawn out. I need to, I definitely need to go over the lines and make it darker. And then I can go ahead and get the carving on this shit and get it out the way for him. So that way he don't feel some type of way. But Daddy, when you gonna finish mine? It came out all right. That came out all right from what I can see. I just need to darken. I need to darken it. Yeah, darken it. And we'll go from there on the carving, but that'll be for another day, another time. I'll try to do a live on that when I start carving it. Once I get it drawn up all the way. And I've been bullshitting on it. I could have finished drawing it up. I've been bullshitting on a couple of carvings. I need to finish up the ones of my children. I'll probably be doing that in between this one and the one of me and my grandfather and my boys. I need to finish that one. The children, one of my grandfather and me and my boys. I got the minion ones I need to finish up. I got about 3 or 4 right there. 3 or 4 next to this table I need to finish. It's not that I need to finish. They ain't for nobody. They're not for nobody. They're like, what I call them. I was telling my uncle, they're like test pieces. Where I test myself as I've been teaching myself and learning from YouTube University how to carve over the years. So I just test myself with little pieces, and sometimes I just get to a point where I'm like, man, I want to try something else. At least another carving. I'll try another carving and I'll get back to that one later. I end up finishing them, but sometimes it take me longer than I want to. And that's something I need to work on. So that way one day when I start putting shit out for sale and I really start doing it for, like to produce them to sell, that the turnaround on them is a lot easier and a lot quicker. But I don't believe I'm to the point I want to be at yet. Because I don't want to tell somebody that, look, I'll have it done in a week or 2 weeks. And It's not done. It's not done. So, but practice makes perfect in whatever you're doing. You need to put time into whatever you're trying to do to help you learn it. So keep pushing at whatever you're trying to do, man. Men and women, keep pushing at whatever you're trying to do. Keep learning, keep growing, because you're never going, you know, as long as you have breath to breathe, you have the opportunity to continue to learn. And you have the opportunity to change the things that you don't like about yourself and within your life. You know, some things is harder than others. Yes, they are, but it doesn't mean that it cannot happen. It still can be a change that can happen. So maybe you just need some motivation. Hopefully, the things you see here on this channel can help motivate you a little bit, whether it be to read or learn something else, or to build something, or to grow something, or do something with your children. Uh, uh, Fish, hunt something. Maybe it can motivate you, and hopefully I could use y'all to continue to help motivate me to keep pushing to do better for myself as well. So, but I appreciate everybody that stopped by tonight to listen up and had the input. Thank you, Solid Tank, for the input. I appreciate it. All comments, I appreciate all comments, but definitely the good comments and those that are along with the topic. I appreciate those as well. All comments help the channel to grow. We just made it over 1,000 subscribers. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep pushing and keep the channel going and growing so we can get higher and higher and higher. More subscribers, man. We'll keep going, man. Just like these plants. So I hope everybody has a wonderful night. I hope everybody has a wonderful night. And till next time on Reading with Shiloh. Till next time, check me out. Be on the lookout for part 3. Part 3 of The Africans in Colonial Louisiana by GWENDOLYN MIDLO Hall. We'll come back with part 3. We're still in chapter 1. We should be out of chapter 1 the next reading session, the next reading hour. Man, so be there or be square. I'm out here. Shalom, man. I'm out.